My company is now making Fuzz Face clones, and I'm going to talk about the difference between my Fuzz Face clones and the original 1960s Dallas Arbiter Fuzz Face so that you know what you're getting. As a musician who plays guitar and a pedal builder, I'm able to do things that I think many other guitar players would really appreciate. And once you know about these improvements, I think you're going to want one too if you want a Fuzz Face. As far as I'm concerned, this is like the everything Fuzz Face. You can't get much better than this. Let's talk about these features, what I've done. We'll start with these three knobs up here. This first one's a volume, and this last one's a fuzz. And that's all you got on the original Fuzz Face. This middle one is a tone knob, and this adjusts the capacitance of the input capacitor. The stock setting was 2.2 UF. This lets you basically get a thinner or thicker tone. And I have put a little dot at the stock capacitance. If that little dot there, you adjust it to there, and you're going to get exactly 2.2 UF. I use a capacitance meter to measure these. This whole pedal's built by hand. Let's go on to these bias knobs here. A lot of you probably don't even know what bias knobs are, so let's talk about that, what they are, why you need them. This has germanium transistors in it, and germanium, you'll hear a lot of people talking about it. Most people say they sound better, and that's because they do. Unfortunately, they're inconsistent and unreliable because their voltage varies with temperature, which is why they went on to silicone. Silicone does have their advantages. They have more gain. Some people prefer silicone. Silicone does sound good. It's just most people prefer the germanium. I personally do. These two resistors here adjust the bias voltage to these transistors, and that's what these knobs do. In the past, other builders have had bias knobs on Fuzz Face clones, but I think I'm the first to ever do this. I've added a voltage meter so you can know what the voltage is and not have to adjust it by ear. Let me demonstrate this by plugging it in. Right now, we're on the Q2 transistor, and it's down to 1.60 volts. I probably want this at about 4.5 volts. That's what it's supposed to be at, or that's what the original ones were supposed to be at. And over here, we want it at about 0.7 volts. I have it written down on the pedal, and that's 0.75. Let's go down to as close as we can to 0.70 volts. It doesn't have to be perfect. There we go, 0.72, good enough. And then over here, once you adjust this, it kind of changes the bias of the other one. So we'll go back to this one and get it to 4.5. So that's the stock voltage, what a Fuzz Face should be. And also I have these LEDs. This tells you you're on the Q2 transistor, and this tells you you're biasing the Q1 transistor. If you put this in the middle, it turns it off, because I've noticed sometimes the voltmeter can introduce some unwanted hissing, so you can turn it off if it's doing that. And also, say it's on, whenever you engage the effect, it turns off the voltage meter too. Also, when you turn it on, it turns green, so greens go, I guess. Blue is you're adjusting these transistors. Let's go on, talk about the other features I have. Over here, these switches, you can go from silicone to germanium in the Q1 or Q2. So this is really cool. You can mix and match, have a hybrid essentially. Having silicone and germanium, it just gives you different breakup features. This one has the BC108C transistors in it. I don't remember which germanium transistors is in this specific one. This bottom switch here is to reduce oscillation. This is an addition to the circuit. That's why I wanted it to be turned off, because I want you to get a stock Fuzz Face circuit. So when you turn it to 1960s, that's going to give you the stock 1960s sound. And then when you turn on the oscillation reducer, this is for the modern silicone, these BC108s. I may not do this for every fuzz, but some of these they just have so much gain. What Dunlop's done in their pedals is they've biased their silicone transistors to a certain point where that oscillation isn't there. But I wanted to give you a broader bias range so you can get like more gain out of the transistor, which is why I have the oscillation reducer. Also, I've shielded the transistors, which does additional help to reduce oscillation. There's one last mod I've done here, and it is to do with the fuzz. On fuzz faces, you'll notice pretty much everyone has the fuzz dimed all the way up. If you look at any Jimi Hendrix pictures where you see his fuzz, it's always all the way up. And what he did was, when he wanted to reduce the fuzz, he'd actually turn down the volume on his guitar, and it would sound better. When you do turn down the fuzz on a fuzz face, it sounds really muddy and unusable. Pretty much nobody plays with the fuzz halfway down. It's always dimed, and then they roll back the volume knob. If you've played a fuzz pedal before and didn't like it, that's probably why. You're probably using it wrong. Because as far as I'm concerned, the fuzz adjustment is completely useless. So what I've done is, this is the fuzz part of the circuit. This right here represents a potentiometer, which is this right here. So what I've done is I've removed the potentiometer, and instead, this is supposed to be a 1K potentiometer. Instead, I put a 1K transistor there. So now this is fixed, turned all the way up. Actually, on this pedal, you can adjust it right here. Some of them I have it with a fixed transistor. This one I have it with adjustable, so you actually can adjust that if you want. Some people like it turned down just a little bit. But anyways, this knob is actually controlling the input gain, which with a 250K potentiometer, which is essentially exactly the same thing that's on a Strat when you turn down the volume. So when you turn down the fuzz on this, it's like turning down the volume on your guitar, and it gives you usable fuzz. It cleans it up really nicely. And then if it lowers the volume a bit, you can turn the volume up here. That's a very useful feature that I don't know if anyone else is doing that, but I think it's a great upgrade for a Fuzz Face clone. Now let's talk about the quality of components. I use these big potentiometers that are alpha. They're really good quality. They last longer than those little small ones. And also capacitors. So there's different kind of capacitors that you can use. The best capacitor you can use, which is what I like to use, is polypropylene. That's this right here. That's what's in this pedal. And then the next best would be this polyester capacitor. These are significantly cheaper than the polypropylene. This is what companies typically use. And then the cheapest is electrolytic. These are used because they're smaller and they're significantly cheaper. Sometimes when there's certain capacitances to where the capacitor is so big, for example, this 22 UF capacitor is the same capacitance as this capacitor. These are both 22 UF, and this is electrolytic, and this is polypropylene. This is significantly more expensive. This is like several dollars, as to where this is several cents. This is also bigger, which is why people don't use them unless you go to a boutique builder like me. I've also found these two to make up the same as this. So in this pedal, as you can see, I have these two capacitors right here. These are the best capacitors you can get because they produce less distortions. It's like the cleanest sounding capacitor you can get. They also last significantly longer. Electrolytic capacitors, sometimes they'll go bad in 5 years. These polypropylene capacitors, these last decades. I mean, you can get 50 years out of them, maybe 100. There's old amps I've worked on, and I almost never replace these. It's always the electrolytics that get replaced. Another thing we should talk about is resistors. If you're getting a custom pedal from me, then you can choose the resistors. Some people prefer these carbon composition resistors. These are old. They will cost more because they don't make them anymore, and they're just really expensive. They produce distortions that some people prefer. They say it gives it a vintage sound. Kind of colors the tone. And then the next thing they came out with was these, which are carbon film. And these produce a little bit less distortion, and they color it a little bit less. These, I think these are the best. These are metal film, and these produce the least amount of distortions, or they don't produce any distortion. It gives you a crystal clear sound, and I prefer to use these. I have more simple designs here. This also lets you bias it, but you're only biasing one transistor. And this is a good option for somebody that just wants it more simple. This doesn't have the selection between the germanium and silicone. It's really everything you need. And I think that's it. I think I've talked about everything. If you have any questions, you can put them down in the comments. If you're interested in having me build a custom one for you, you can email me. Or if you would like to buy a pre-built one, you can go to my Reverb account, and I'll put those links in the description to my email and to my Reverb. And I will come out with some future videos later doing some demonstrations of these and maybe getting more into the schematics. So if there's any DIYers that want to build their own, they can build them. If you like this video, please leave a comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.